Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to have the two of you, if you want to join another table group, because it looks like we're low on people today. And so let's go ahead and consolidate our people. Facilitate better conversations, maybe. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, please. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with a roll call.
Bender. Absent. Blair. Here. Bottles. Absent. Brown. Absent. Bryan. Absent. Buck. Absent. Clayton. Absent. Dahl. Doyen. Absent. Furch. Here. Gardner. Gindelsberger. Here. Gerber. Here. Hope. Here. Horner. Absent. Itkonen. Here. Jenkins. Absent. Kelly. Absent. McFarland. Absent. McMahon. Absent. Mafuccio. Absent. McComber. Here. Merrill. Absent. Morrison. Here. Petzinger. Absent. Pierce. Here. Ritter. Here. Sterling. Here. Wasdall. York.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. So today's meeting is going to be a little different as we're kind of trying to finish up and summarize where we've been. So we provided you the minutes from the May 23rd meeting. Was there any significant changes you felt to the minutes that were sent out? Okay. And then we're just going to jump into this. So I want to review kind of where we're at and what we know and what we need to get out of today's meeting. So the role of the committee was to review the existing plan, address what portions of the plan are outdated. Are there any themes or priorities that are inconsistent with the way that you feel the vision of what you feel the vision of Eagle is? And then are ideas and or themes you want the city to consider? So at this point in time, we're at that point of making that formalized recommendation. This will go to the City Council on June 23rd at 3 o'clock at their workshop, whatever we come out of today with. So we talked about this before at the very beginning, but what is a recommendation? A recommendation for a direction for a planning process or research that needs to be considered during the process. It is not a strict standard, it's not an ultimatum, and it's not a strict directive. It's trying to give research and ideas that we need to consider further and vet with the public. Once the recommendation is received, the council will create a scope of work that will guide the drafting of the plan, public participation, and additional community discussion. What from the committee's recommendation is included in the scope of work is completely at the council's discretion. So staff isn't making these. This is going to go to the council for their direction. We talked about this before. This all started with the council saying, hey, let's amend the plan. And they put into place this review committee. The review committee's role we've talked about already. This isn't a required process or a required committee. This was something that the council asked for us to put together. Your committee review comes into the project development scope for the city. So what you'll see here is you're not receiving a scope of work here. We're not creating a scope of work for you. We're creating themes that they want the council to consider and ideas as we move forward. The project development, which is the next phase, will include scope of work, consultant and staff projects, a comprehensive plan committee, public participation and outreach, workshops with the council, and then any interaction we have with the city's committees, commissions, and boards. So generally, as we talked before, is we have increasing public participation as we move through the process. So we're really right up here at the top. We're not down here. There will be continued public participation throughout the process. But for today, and for this committee's work, is to help inform how we draft this scope of work or what gets considered by the council in that scope of work. So the final recommendation, as we end this process, the final recommendation will be based on consensus of the whole. We're trying to avoid individual opinions or personal grievances within this document. This is supposed to be what we've heard and dialogued as a group. That's the reason the summary that you received was like 14 pages long, was then summary down to some bullet points to try and get to what those themes were. Now, I'm not claiming those themes were all completely there, but it was a start of a conversation. And that's the conversation we're going to have today. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go through a series, a question by question, and have each group actually work together on coming to a consensus of your group. And then we're going to have each group report back out their kind of summary and how they've gotten to their answer. I am going to keep this, trying to keep the time constraint under wraps, but to try and keep us going forward. Again, we're looking for a consensus. This is not going to be everyone's opinion may not make it in the consensus statement. But bear in mind, that doesn't mean that you don't, as an individual, have the right to engage in the further public participation processes moving forward. It's just how we move this forward to the council. So the first two questions I'm going to have you actually do is, should the plan be rewritten? And what is the timeline and urgency of an amendment? Are certain sections more important than others? The statement we made before is pay more, go quickly, pay less, go more slowly. So as you kind of think through that and talk as your table, those are the kind of the two questions we want to answer is, should we rewrite and plan? Is there an urgency? And are there certain sections that are more important than others that we need to focus on? I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. Because you guys should have this down by this time. You've read the entire plan at this point in time. There's a copy of it there. Well, I was going to ask, do you guys want to join another group so you're having a bigger dialogue? I mean, the question is just the two of you guys. No, he knows. He knows. Yeah. Okay, do you guys feel like you're ready to move on, or are you still talking? I will give you a couple more minutes. What? I know, well, they said they needed more. Sorry. And that's part of the concept. That's also an option. I mean, often we draft a plan and we take it out to the public. The problem is historically, people, that hasn't been because people just get upset. Whatever we do, it's going to be probably, you know. And we did that. I mean, we did that with the bylaws, right? We had a certain, this is what we want to achieve. And now we're putting meat on the bones, right? And the question is that applicable? That's the question. Because remember, that's the main. Not building code, it's zoning code. It's zoning code. But not all zoning codes are going to do that. So you have to still have some of that there because if somebody comes in and very different. We have to tell the developer, this is your guy. Now, we'll use code to make sure we have all that. Okay. Here we go. Who wants to go first? And report out what their committee decided. So let's go with Mr. Pierce.
All right, rewrite the plan or have it evaluated every 5 years. And then speed is important, pay more if needed.
So rewrite the plan with an update every 5 years.
Unless otherwise needed.
I got, yeah, hang on, let me finish. And then you think a consultant, move faster and bring a consultant in.
Whatever it takes, speed is important, so whatever it takes.
Move quickly, speed is important.
In the interim, all city councils have the right at any time to take any particular portion and move forward with a comprehensive plan amendment if there's a problem that needs addressed during those 5 years.
They have the right to do that regardless. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to take away authority from a council. Bill, you want to tell me what your guys' group came up with?
The group was yes, should be rewritten. Some folks feel the plan is too broad, there needs to be some specificity brought into it. Focusing on quality, potentially using hyperlinks within the city's website that you could click on it, the link and take you to a specific section. I think that the thought that it's 200 some odd pages long overwhelms people and don't may have a hard time finding what it is they want to look for in the plan. On the land use is the heart of it. You focus on that. On the areas that are fully developed, try to come up with different policies with regard to how they're addressed rather than just referencing like infill areas or having planning overlay to where you could specifically look to use infill densities rather than keeping the densities potentially lower and having and focusing on maintaining the character of the area. That's just of it goes.
And whether we should, the urgency of the amendment?
rushed. I think there has to be, a well laid out, methodic, plan to review the plan, to address not only the current, situation, but, the situation, that is projected to be in the future. In other words, approach it for modernization.
Okay, so does the rest of your group feel that same way? I'm just asking because that's kind of the hope, was to come to a consensus. Okay. Robin, your group.
Okay. They were all in agreement that the plan should be rewritten with some understanding that some of the chapters are partial, some are in full. As far as timeline and urgency, some of those smaller chapters that are just kind of updating data and stuff could be done at a faster pace. But the rest of the chapters that actually have to be rewritten based on policies and what they'd like to see as the vision should be done at a slower pace. So that they're capturing everything that is the vision for the city. Certain sections that are more important, they felt like because of development and growth, that the land use, economic development, and the downtown section is probably priority over a lot of the other sections of the comp plan, and that it should be updated every 5 years.
Okay. Who's going to report for you guys?
I will. Let's see, I don't think we agreed on whether it's rewritten or what, but we said there are major changes, duplication. There's a lot of duplication that's going to be removed. Reorganization of the structure to make more sense, and then updated information. So I see that as a rewrite, but using what you can is there. As far as timeline, sort of the same thing I'll say. That it's important, particularly with all the other things going on, like downtown, other projects that will be coming in. So this has got to move to provide the direction for all those other items. And things are changing fast. So this should be fast, but well done. Doesn't necessarily mean fast.
Okay. So, oops. So generally, I hear two trains of thought still here. So I've got kind of the moderated, like there's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff, there's some things that could go fast, there's some things that probably need to take more time. I hear one group saying, get this done, do what you got to do. And I've got one group who's saying, don't rush it. Let's take the time we need now to do it. So with that,
I think they mean don't rush it next time. Like, I don't know how you guys did it last time, but how we did it this time is there was a lot of information that we weren't privy to, and we're making recommendations and taking these meetings, and there's just a lot of information that needs to be absorbed by the committee that was never available to us. Even when I asked for it in an email, I didn't get links to the economic development plan. I didn't get information that we really need in order to really come up with an effective.
you understand you're not being asked to rewrite the plan. You're not even asked to drive out the scope of work for the comp plan. And I did send the economic development plan out. The Parks, Trails, and Open Space plan doesn't exist. Well, anyways, okay, so here's the question. I guess I'm going to take the consensus being that there are things that need to go quickly, that we know that we can just get updates on, and there are things that probably need to take a little bit more time. And what I'm going to ask your group to kind of focus on now is, should the city amend the plan? Should it be internal, external? And what sections do you recommend are done internally versus externally from the city? So what are the things that you feel like internally the city should be handling these specific items, or here are things that we think we would really like to see a third set of eyes on as we move forward? And that doesn't mean that they're going to know the answer when they start the planning process. This is just how do we begin that planning process?
Does it take someone outside of the city to look at the economic development plan and be able to look at the budget and be like a CFO or a CPA to look at all of the information and actually justify an
That's the planning process, Judy. I appreciate, but that's the planning process. So what you're saying is, we don't know. Is there an economic development outside need? I'm going to say there is such thing as project capacity within the city of Eagle. Our staff can only do so much in such a length of time. So if you're saying, we want to know if we decrease density, do we need to change our economic forecast for the city? That's a scope of work. And that's whether I meet with Robin and I say, can you do this and what's your timeline on it? And it's the council's directive to say, we don't want to spend outside money on that. We want to do it locally. Your direction and request is from us is, are there things you feel need to be done outside of the current staffing structure? Judy, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to let somebody else go.
How long would you estimate the staff to do this versus an outside?
Based on your comment on the first one, which the plan needs to be rewritten, and there are some sections that need more work than others, I would say it's at least an 18-month process for the city, and that's assuming there's no other activities on the staff's plate for that. And so I look at the mayor and say, okay, you want me to work on this for 18 months. How does that happen? Because that means the capital plan's no longer getting done for the city. There's other projects that are being done and focused on that consume staff time. So, and that's the thing. We're not asking you to develop a scope of work. We're asking you to give us some directive that we can go back to the council and say, we're hearing they want this rewritten and they want it done as quickly as possible. That then goes to the council, and the council gets to make that decision as to whether we move staff resources around.
18 months seems too long. So we're talking about fast versus how fast do you think the outside entity?
Depends on your outside entity. Currently, consultant staffing is really hard to get. Who are you going to hire that's going to understand Eagle? So bear that in mind too. So you have to find the right consultants who's aligned with the values and vision of Eagle and able to write the plan and not come in and give you a cookie cutter approach that's willing to think of Eagle separately. I mean, there's pros and cons of each. Thus, the reason in the past, and I can give you that historic, the city has used consultants for specific things. Transportation. We specifically had a consultant for transportation because we were able to give them land uses that then create a transportation demand. We've used a consultant via Robin to have economic development done because it wasn't something we had a specialty in the house. But that's the balancing act, right, of how we move forward and what we choose to get done and not get done.
So let's just get back to.
Okay, I want to, yeah, thank you.
Let's figure out what parts we want consultant and internal.
There you go.
Maybe the things that are the next group, which you could be a part of or not. So we do.
Thank you, Mayor. So let's focus on the question is, how should the city amend the plan? Should it be internal or external? And are there specific sections upon your review of the plan as it exists today that you think should be done internally or externally? I think we're going to get that out of this. Based upon what you read, you want to see amendments.
council had said, okay, let's go back out to the public and make sure we got it all, if not something else. They could still reject anything that you guys bring forward. Not that I think they will, but they could. So that's why the scope of work doesn't come out of this process. The scope of work comes out of that right over to council. Because they may say, no, we really think Robin's really good to be able to handle economic development. We don't want a consultant for that, but we do want a consultant for transportation. So that's, but what we're looking for here is for you guys to look at the chapters of the plan, to know what's in the plan, what needs to be done in the plan. Where are the things that you think that there needs the city needs extra because you know we're growing faster, or things have changed enough that since last time we did the plan that there needs to be more eyes on that section, or maybe we want to get that section going faster.
I mean, it almost seems like to be able to go through these, I want to look at the top items really need to be addressed and say, have a internally work on that, and then go through and say, okay, realistically, you know, is, don't anybody just slap on me, but throwing some out, library, it's really fine as it is, you know, send that to the person in charge of the library and have them update it, but really, realistically, you know,
So
land
what
use
you're
needs to be
saying
addressed.
is, let's see, you just did that, so you just said utility facilities and services should be done internally cooperatively with those agencies,
Right,
right?
right.
So the question then goes, what are the sections that then need external support? Or is it land use, is it transportation? Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
what are those sections that you're saying, external, we think there needs to be external support on these things, because we think that there's a bigger concern, issue, or change that we need to be done.
Because realistically, the police know what they need and what they want. And could we then, could we meeting internally, couldn't it be reviewed and say, yes, we agree with this, no, we don't? I mean, that way I would see.
It could be, but that's not where we're, I mean, that would be, the question is, what are the things that are important that we think we get next time? Pick those top ones, whatever they are. I mean, it could be, you could say the whole damn thing, I'm done. And I mean, but what are those top issues that you think, these are the things we need external support on? We need external eyes, we need new ideas. I believe, probably, I believe that we need to have external on transportation for sure, because we don't do it. It's two other agencies that do it for us. So it's really important. They don't actually, I think so trying to get that to work. We have 4 state highways within our jurisdiction. There's a lot of intricacies there. I do think that we probably are at a point that we need some support on open space and trails and parks. We're kind of going from that like lowland area to the foothill area, and they are separated. And how do we make it into one consistent vision across the city? No. Well, there is one in the works. There's not one today. There's been one that we started scoping, but this kind of got into that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So I really think that's one of the places that we want to get some consulting help. Robin's doing a lot of work right now on economic development, whether she felt that there was something she needed for that to make that work. I think that would probably, because that's one of the chapters historically we've not had anybody for.
From a rider's point of view, especially, I've written time, and you know, I utilize the convoluted word, I'm not saying about I think that, it's not so much that the plan doesn't address.
Well, and I think that, I mean, I think that's certainly a place you could say, we really feel that having a consultant come in to help us reduce redundancies, streamline the plan, that would be a benefit of a consultant coming in. I think as we talk here, you know, the land use section, I think there's very weird points on the land use section. Does everything go into a sub area? Do we get rid of the sub areas and just go with the policies that are generic to land use? Those things are all part of that process. And when you have to go reinvent it.
I also think that we're
Sports and trends and all that kind of stuff, and that's great.
4 years, you're gonna have housing up there, private uses, depending upon the economy. The possibility of annexation of that or, so in general, design of the land use, I'm not necessarily sure how. It's like the downtown, I really want somebody to come outside.
So maybe that one's outside.
Great. I mean, I think that that's fair. I just think it's time to engage the locality. It's important. What they're doing takes time. So that's something to bear in mind, right?
And it goes back to my saying, I shouldn't be
Some of them
Right.
that are different than everybody else's, and so how do you work through that? That's gotta be part of that process.
Well, and the thing is time too. Where are we? What happened or changed?
Correct. If we hit a recession, I mean, quite honestly.
Right.
What's the end goal? Is the end goal to have a plan that's gonna be worked on for 5 to 10 years afterwards, and just keep minor amendments? Or is the end goal to be rewriting this thing every 4 to 5 years? What's the end goal?
I mean, cost, I mean, you have to look at the cost too. I mean, you start hiring consultants and everything, they're not cheap.
Not significantly change its plan. I would say from 99 through to 2004, I don't think really think that there were huge changes in planning philosophy decisions. So that was kind of there, and then we did the Western Area Plan, we started thinking, we started talking about new growth versus kind of what had been established as what people had been, right? And I think that's part of the challenge of people, is that we always have this spring up. We have more. There's still another, 15 to 20,000 acres of foothills outside of Spring Valley. What does that look like? And how do you provide guidance to that?
Should we try to capture the BLM money?
So I think, so if you ask me, I kind of go, there's probably a need to help with the land use and just something they just talk about it. I don't know that we need it so much as in what is the land use, but how do we facilitate creating a more cohesive vision of it? And then I think, part of the well, and I think part of utilities facilities is really, we could shift that load onto the station. If it's not ours, he goes to a district. Oh, Neil, he has a sewer board meeting tonight, Neil. And that's, but that could be us saying, you know what, you provide a utility to the city, your job to find for.
I agree.
Thank you, we're not gonna go there. So maybe that's like, that's maybe just offsetting, saying that the comp plan doesn't need to have those policies. Comp plan is saying you have to have sewer. Go talk, these are your providers. Go talk to them about
Get
how
them
they
to
provide
find
them.
I mean, realistically, I mean, that's what I've had to do in other areas is you want to do this, go over to sewer and see if they can allow you to have that in that area. I don't know. I think sometimes we look at it and we try to make it too difficult and so robust that then every 5 years you're going, okay, well, this isn't valid anymore because if the economy continues and doesn't slow down, this is, by the time we get 18 months into a year and a half, and you finish it, and then that's another 3.5 years later, you're at 5 years. And so are we being responsible to make it so it's so detailed?
So that's what I was saying.
Well, and I think that was also down here, teachers' conversation with the education chapter is like, we don't need this special education
not doing, we're done. Okay, Jason, you wanna start with your guys' committee on how should the city amend the plan and what sections should we be working to work with an external source on?
Start with somebody else.
Start with somebody else.
So, all right, consultant, we thought, so we went through chapter by chapter.
Okay.
We thought population growth and housing should be done by consultants, utilities portion, natural features, transportation, economic.
Slow down, dude.
Oh, sorry.
Population growth, housing. Keep going.
Economic side, or economic development, park rec open space, and the implementation.
So 4 chapters: population growth, housing, economic development, and parks, recreation, open space, and implementation. Sorry, 5.
We had utilities.
Okay. You think those are all consultants? No, it's okay.
And then internal would be the vision,
Everything else.
land use, community design.
So all the everything else is just then. Okay. Okay. You didn't say transportation, sir. Transportation?
Yes, that would be consultant.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next group, and here's what we're going to do. Okay. Mac, your group. Let me frame the question a little bit different this time. So you have heard population and growth. Is that a chapter you feel it should be external?
Let me answer your overall question different.
Okay, go for
I
it.
think that the city ought to maintain primary and hands-on control of the entire process. You ought to have a consultant that's overviews and does the day-to-day work. That's not the right term. A consultant that encompasses the entire thing under the direction of the city. We thought specifically that land use and transportation ought to stay in-house. And I'll let you guys vote.
We had the question of, if you use other agencies, is that considered consultants? Or can you, like, an ACHD do for?
Yeah. Don't think I'm going to get ACHD to write my comp plan for me. I don't know that I can do that.
Not talking about the transportation side.
No, they won't do that.
They won't do it. Okay.
They will not do that.
So just saying, other agencies.
No, I mean, we've been able to utilize other agencies to input, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're doing they're not making the assumptions or making the policies necessary to move forward. They'll give you data, and they'll review, but they're not going to do that work. And specifically ACHD, I don't see, unless, Tom, you going to write the plan for me?
But that was just one example of what could they do?
We say in-house, we do transportation in-house, but we would rely on ITD and ACHD for help.
So in the past, ACHD and ITD have been planning partners with us. They sit at the table. Compass is in that same role. They come, they're part of our process. They sit on our steering committee. They may sit on a work group for us, and they're part of that, but we have to be providing information to that group. They aren't going to do that for us. Okay? Any other sections? You said basically land use and transportation in-house and everything else managed by the city, but having a consultant be doing I put grunt work, but I don't really mean it that way. Okay.
Under the city's direction.
Under the city's direction.
Okay. Robin.
Our group was really easy. We felt like, let's just say they felt like, everything should be internal, and that the city should hire some additional staff to help out with the staff that's going to be working on the comp plan, to help with their duties while they're working on the comp plan. But every chapter should be internal with the exception of chapter 7, which is the natural resources and hazard areas. They felt that should be consultant. And chapter 4 and 8, which is school, public service utilities, and transportation, should be city-led, but they're definitely collaboration and coordination with all the outside agencies that are involved. Everything else internal.
So the city should do it all internal, hire staff to make that happen. Natural resources would be the one to go external. And the utilities and transportation would be collaborative. Okay? Bill.
This group, like what the mayor stated, specifically transportation and the open space section, potentially using consultants for mainly the main items was taking the time to manage it appropriately in-house and not so rush it so that it's done well.
Okay. So you all don't agree, just to be clear, on how this is going. So can I talk? Is that possible?
No. I mean, please go ahead.
So what I am hearing some themes. Some themalities are some concerns about transportation. I'm hearing concerns about land use, and I'm hearing concerns about open space. Are those the three chapters of highest concern? Is that a fair statement? Transportation, open space, and land use are the three big hot button items. Is that fair? Areas where you want to have probably the largest effort or consideration made, whether that be however that happens, whether it be a consultant or internal, but those are the three items that I think each group brought up as areas of concern that everybody agreed to.
Was it open space or natural features hazard areas?
Open space was by 1, 2, 3 groups. I had one group saying natural resources, but I think that could be part of open space. But I'm just saying the three big hot topic areas were open space, transportation, and.
I was just to say, so ours was based on just strictly if it was internal or external,
Mm-hmm.
but when you talk about sections that they thought were more critical than others, it was land use, economic development. Yeah, land use and economic development.
Okay.
Those are two most important critical sections.
So, if we are, okay, so let's do this. If I had to ask you to pick one section that's the most important to you, and I say it, I'm going to ask you guys just to raise your hands. Is it land use? Is land use your number one area of concern? Okay, I think that is a fair and strong statement. If I said, what is the second section for you, if you were to do it, would you say economic development is your second chapter? Okay, Judy, you really got to let me facilitate the group. Really let me do my job, please. Thank you. If I had to say the next group, would economic development, who would say their next priority is economic development? Okay, so that's probably not as strong, guys. If I said the next one was parks, trails, and open space, would that be your number 2 priority? Okay, it's a fairly strong showing. If I said, Mac, let me facilitate the meeting, please.
What did Matt say?
Mac, I love you, Mac. If I were to say transportation, would transportation be your next biggest concern? 1, 2. Actually, at this point in time, what I heard was parks, trails, and open space is actually more important than transportation to the group. Based upon the vote you guys just did. Okay, third priority. Is it economic development is your third priority? You got land use done, you got parks, trails, and open space done. Is economic development your third priority? Yes or no? Put your hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put your hands up. 6. Okay, is your third priority transportation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I got top 3. Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but it seems to me like we've got parks, recreation, and open space in one item. It seems to me like land use and open space ought to be put together. And then, for me, those two and include the open space section, which seems to fit the plan use to me more than it does the park.
That is not necessarily the purview of the group. I mean, we're not trying to combine chapters here. I'm not asking you guys to redo it. What I'm trying to get is, I had a list of, everybody gave me a list of who they wanted consultants for, and what I want to hear is, what are the chapters of most concern? Because if I marry the chapters of most concern with what you told me you thought consultants were needed, we should be able to get some direction out of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we get it.
How much control does the city have over transportation? So, I mean,
Very little. But I want to say zero. I don't want to say zero. We do, because we put people on the ground that use the transportation system.
that would change the priority in my mind if the city has little input in it.
We have a little, that's a good statement. We have a little input in it.
Let's clear that up though. Our land uses, that's what help dictate what goes on.
Correct. Correct.
Now, what gets built, we don't necessarily.
Correct.
But I think making sure we know what we're building will add to the, you know, the traffic.
Right, so land use drives transportation. So,
Okay. Okay. What, and we kind of talked about this, but what is the first, and I think we just did this question, quite honestly. What needs to be done first? So there's a series of plans and studies that the city is working on that need to be used to inform the plan, or could be used to inform the plan. And that includes the downtown plan, parks, trails, and open space plan, an impact fee study, agency plans, because we know the school district's working on an update to their plan. We know the sewer district's working on an update to their plan. Idaho Power's working on an update to their plan. So the question becomes, is what do we do first? Do we just go forward in our planning process and hope that we can catch all this in? Or are there things that we need to wait to make sure they are engaged and integrated into this planning process? Okay? Yes.
All of those things you just mentioned, aren't they derivative of land use? I mean, schools clearly derivative of land use, traffic derivative, sewer derivative. So isn't the land use decision the basic one on which everyone else?
Not necessarily. I mean, well, because the sewer has already made a plan, and there are directives and investments they've already made that are going to direct whether or not the system works. And they could come back to us and say, we can't do that. You can't drop those densities. You can't do those things. We've already made an investment. So it's still a back and forth. Power is a regional plan. This is Southwest Idaho. It's not just us. They're not looking at Eagle specific. It's going to be a larger, it's the Western Treasure Valley study.
If we save the sewer department money and but they already have a plan to spend many more millions of dollars, that they're gonna come back to us and say, you have to have all those densities because we wanna spend those millions of dollars on the sewer.
No, Judy, they've already spent the money on the sewer, and they've already made an investment on the sewer. So when we go to do land uses, it's the discussion of, if we do this, what does that do to your sewer? If your sewer doesn't flow, it starts to stink, and then it doesn't work. And so part of that conversation is, where have you already put an investment in the ground? Where are the places that we can amend versus where we can't amend?
A lot of the sewer planning takes place off of our land planning, and that's what they utilize to be able to
Correct.
know what they want to do. If we start
Changing it up.
too much, then that certainly affects them on how much capacity they're going to have. And they've come in before and said, please don't do this or that because we don't have.
If that was the case, we could have environmental storm drainage into our sewer.
You cannot do that, Judy. That's illegal. Okay, stop. I'm going to leave the question out there. Go to your groups. Is there any type of planning work that you can think of you want to be done before we draft an edit to the comprehensive plan? So looking at outside documents or outside information, are there any things that need to happen first?
Deadlines, do we know when those are?
No, we do not have those.
But I mean, could it be 6 months or a year?
It could be. It would probably be within the same timeline of what we're looking to do the plan. So bear that in mind. Is there any information you feel like plans that need to be done first before we go forward? What is the information you need to be able to do the plan? Okay? I'm going to hold you to 5 minutes this time.
you would read it and understand what somebody's trying to say. You know, that you know that, okay, there's a park going in your backyard, okay, now there's not a park going in there, but this is how many houses can go per acre. So that you understand what it is. You know, because that's what it truly is. You know, anything can change. It could change to something else, you know. Things can evolve. And I think that that's where, it's almost like it needs to be written so that it is implementation. And it's almost like, do you say that every 5 years you just, the council determines what sections need to be rewritten or revised? Because it almost seems that if you take the whole thing on as one agenda document, it seems to me, you know, I think you say, okay, every 5 years we rewrite 4 chapters. What are the most 4 important chapters? Because I think, right. Well, let's say something like then does this immediately have to be rewritten before you can collect fees, or can you collect fees throughout the 10 years? Okay. Right.
But are they really good? If there's all these other, like a school district, they get their data, well, they just rely on the fees.
Right. Because there, I mean, there's something to say about having something be described and narrowed, but then it creates problems when you go to revising it or as you evolve. You know, it almost to me seems like it needs to be like an outline, an overview, and
Thank you, sir. It was 7 minutes, I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna come back here. So in this conversation, so the question just becomes, what needs to be done first? Are there documents that the city needs to make sure are done before we come forward? These are examples. These are not all of the documents, but are there documents that you can think, hey, we'd really like to see that done? Now, the group over here had a very nice conversation about parks, trails, and open space. And their conversation was, it'd be nice to do the parks, trails, and open space, if not before, in concert with this plan, because you could get rid of that chapter. Like, you don't have to have that chapter in the comprehensive plan if we can just cross-reference to another document. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go around and ask the same question. So Mac, you're first. Yeah, you're first.
I'm not usurping your authority here now.
No, go. Go, Mac.
What was the question? Whether we do the
What needs to be done first? Are there plans or documents or studies that need to happen before we write our comp plan?
No. Oh, yes.
Nope. Okay. Robin.
This committee felt like that the downtown master plan and the parks, trails, and open space master plan should be done prior to those specific chapters or sections within the comp plan, but not the rest of the comp plan.
Okay. Bill. Okay. Mayor.
So we thought the parks, trails, and open space needed to be done first, because, once you lose the open space, it's gone, so we think it needs to be set kind of in stone on that. Impact fees, kind of the same thing, as things are happening, you want your impact fees to make sure they, mirror what would be able to be done with those impact fees. Downtown plan, and then the agency plans after that.
So when you say downtown and agency after that, just coordinating with the plan?
More things in order.
Okay. 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 Next big one, and this one I've heard varying opinions on. Should the plan include land use sub areas? Go.
We never answered that question. We were talking about something entirely different.
We're doing it now.
how do you know what zoning you put in play? Where are the policies in the plan to know that that's the zoning that puts it? How would you define it? Tell me where, so there's just gonna be a general policy? Because everything in the land use designation of neighborhood residential has a policy.
If you don't spell it out, you've got a person that's in the center of the conflict. And they wonder when it's truly something else that you're saying, then are you creating more havoc or frustration or I, as you know, it not being
Wanting commercial, there's policies about not wanting commercial. How does that
Yeah, I think as a whole, myself included, people would have been through it better. I think because before this time, I never felt this everything was always developed. You know, and so when you go in on something, you see a sign, you go, okay, that's what it's gonna be. But things change, right? And I think that's the frustration. I think that's where we find the very frustrated is because a lot of people never bought next to open land or thought, they bought 15 years ago. Not realizing that times change and now it's been sold and it's no longer a farm and this is what you're gonna get.
You could have different zones within the suburb. Everything should be in a sub-area, whatever those sub-areas look like. Okay. Avonmore's in the foothill sub-area today. Okay, the mayor has been very stringent in wanting to make sure I actually use 5 minutes. That was 5 minutes. So here we go. Sub-areas. Bill.
We had a good discussion about the pros and cons of sub-areas. And there's a recognition that some of the feeling of the bloatedness of the plan may come from too much time and effort being spent on the sub-area, but there's also a recognition that without them, that there's less detailed foresight into how those areas may be developed. So it's
Inconclusive again?
well.
Okay.
If you don't include them, how do you articulate and set out that vision for those areas? So
Pros and cons to both.
There was some talk about reducing the number of subdivisions.
Okay. Okay. Anything else from that table? Okay. Mayor.
Yes, on some areas.
Yes on all the city being in sub-areas or just keeping the sub-areas we have?
Keeping sub-areas and looking at seeing if we need more or not, but we want to have sub-areas.
I believe we do need to have everything accountable, even if we don't have to have a very descriptive, it should be listed as a sub-area, even if we only have one sentence says, this is all developed, neighborhood, residential, and we'll say that.
Okay.
But it has to be designated, it has to be an area, and it has, and so that we don't, assume, things, especially when infill.
Okay.
Infill things that come up, it has all areas have to be described.
Robin?
Our ultimate comment was yes. The discussion also was about, should the ones that are built out not be in a sub-area, but then we played the devil's advocate on, well, what if something demoed and rebuilt, then you wouldn't have guidelines to guide the rebuild. So the ultimate decision was yes, and then we should also look at the areas that are currently not in sub-areas that we need to be created in sub-areas.
Okay. Mac.
Entire city should be made up of sub-areas.
Thank you. That was very concise. Way to go, Mac. So overall, you guys all are seem to be in consensus that sub-areas should be retained in the plan and looking at what are the options for either expanding them or looking at areas that need them. They're all in the downtown sub-area. They're not the same. They're all within a sub-area, sub-areas within sub-areas. But okay. All right. Should the city continue to focus on growth to downtown and along major corridors to preserve larger areas with lower densities? This is an actual policy in the plan that's come up multiple times about density, where it goes, and do we have it or not. So this is actually a policy, so I think this is a really good overarching policy to have a conversation about how you feel about this statement as we move forward. Do we continue to say there are areas that we focus growth into, that we want higher growth in density and intensity, and are there areas that will then be preserved to not have as much density? Go. Yes, please. You're done. Robin's going to go first. He was very concise there. Okay, how you doing? Staying on time. Okay, Robin, how does your group feel about focusing growth into downtown and along major corridors to preserve larger areas with lower density?
Yes.
Yes. 3 letters. Okay. Bill, how does your group summarize this? No. Mayor.
Yes.
Whoa, Mac.
Now it doesn't matter what they say, because they're out of consensus.
Well, if they have some intellect or delight that they'd like us to reconsider. Okay, hang on, guys. We got somebody talking, so if we could respect him.
So we said yes, and then some of us more. That we move from, houses per acre to lot sizes.
There you go, that's what I was telling you.
Okay, Bill, we're at your guys' turn.
Absolutely, maintaining a rural planning area, and certainly maintaining the other rural areas is important. So if you need to prescribe densities along the corridors, that's fine, but there still needs to be a hard look at what those densities are.
Okay. Bill just did a great transition into the next question. Should the city continue to maintain a rural planning area? What is the role of agricultural industries in this area? You pick writing arenas, wineries, crushing facilities. I threw everything at it. And then what should the plan do to address agricultural preservation outside of the rural areas? Go. 5 minutes. What should the plan do to address agriculture? Have hillside. You could have winery. You could have crushing facilities.
I mean, unless you do something where the city invests in by, their down is less and when they sell it, they have to live there for a period of 2 years and then they only get 100,000 equity back at the end and the city gets the rest of the money. Unless you do housing program. Right. think we all agree we need more commercial. But everybody says the city legal is so hard to work with commercial or business, you know, like pet IQ and stuff like that. Is there any truth? Should we just consider hard work with, like, we just don't accept everything that we just throw at us? Would you say it's so bad? I think the hard part is those of us that are don't know the difference between what this council is currently doing and what the previous council does. And so kind of guilty by association, and so you know, there's a lot of discussion. I try to make myself more knowledgeable about the community. No, and just getting that message out, I think, is the hard part.
Well, you may set yourselves up for a fight to the permit anymore, because you know what? We'll give you something. That's what they do right now. We have places that were designated 2 units per acre, and they said, we'll give you 4. Thank you. Okay. Time's up. Bill, would I dare to say your group is ready to talk? Okay.
And then, as far as, it's one thing to have, yes, having ag industries or having ag.
Okay, guys, let's listen to the other people, please. You'd like to be listened. We need to listen to them.
Having active agriculture in the rural, in and outside of the rural planning areas is important. How manufacturing and processing facilities are another story, and those should be regulated differently
And should we address agricultural preservation outside of rural areas? Outside of the rural planning area?
Yes, and those are, I mean, the impacts of the loss of ag areas should be a component that is discussed as part of the plan.
Okay. Robin?
Keep the existing rural area as it stands right now in the comprehensive plan. On the second question, the role of agriculture, kind of inconclusive. That was a difficult conversation because you want some things in there, but how do you maintain the scale of the aesthetics of a rural environment? And then on the addressing outside the rural areas, yes, you should address agriculture preservation, but they really like what the comp plan currently has for the viticultural area, would like to continue with that.
So outside of the viticultural area or the rural area, yes, look at ag preservation. Okay. Mayor?
All right, yes on ag sites, no retail sales. Create areas downtown for retail, so like some kind of co-op we have downtown where people can bring all their stuff down there and then sell it rather than taking people up to go to the rural areas. And then, stuff that we like on-site, pick like the blueberries or flowers or stuff like that, you could go up there because it's kind of seasonal and doesn't happen all year long in events and stuff like that some of the other products bring. And then also, definitely preserve the agriculture outside of the rural area as much as possible. Create ways to let that expand for future agriculture. And most people think of agriculture as like corn, onions, or something like that, but there's other things that you can do to preserve those lands.
Okay. Mac?
We said, keep the rural sub-area as it is, and then add rural as appropriate, to other appropriate sub-areas. Just develop.
Add rural or ag preservation to other sub-areas.
Ag preservation.
Okay.
No subdivisions.
So what he's saying is he feels that there are places that we should say a subdivision is not compatible with ag preservation, and that should be the dominant view. Okay. Sorry, my shorthand is not going well. Okay. Should the city continue to focus on moving towards a fiscally sustainable model? So we've used the fiscally constrained capital improvement plan and changes in land use to support the ad valorem. It's a fun word. It's the land use tax funding over time. So should the city be looking at the fiscal viability of the city long term? And should that be a basis for us making some of our land use decisions? I want you to talk to your group, please. Should the plan create demand? So for parks, for trails, for police, and should we be looking at what those demands are and how that affects our land use decision? It will be an enterprise fund long term that will have to sustain itself. So money can be borrowed from the city. They can't because it's an enterprise. It's like water. Water is meant to be managed for the benefit of
we're limited to maybe we'll have.
Okay, here we go. Back to it. So should the city continue to focus on moving toward a fiscally sustainable model? Financially constrained CIP, changes in land use to support the ad valorem funding over time, which may mean that we look at land uses and say, how much taxes will we collect? How much demand on services will there be for that? Can we make that work? Okay, Mayor, you're first.
All right, yes, we should. The fact that the city started the CIP program, which shows that, what we have today and what we need to do to maintain it before we continue to add more and more stuff to it. And also, realizing, as you build more density and some of the, subdivisions come in, that they should be, kind of taking care of themselves in some aspect. It doesn't all come back to the city.
CIP is the capital improvement plan. Okay, Mac.
Yes, echoing the mayor's comments.
Robin.
A lot of discussion on this. Yes, they feel like we should keep moving forward with a fiscally sustainable model, that we should ensure that development and growth is paying for itself, whether that means going back a lot to relook at fees and what we're charging people when we are developing in our city, and making sure that we're budgeting accordingly for those projects and that we're not overextending ourselves.
Bill, I let you go last just because.
Yes, caveat or understanding that the change in land use, understanding what those changes would be, and then also the location of those land uses. I think the question was that there would be a land use change from probably residential to commercial, and identifying the location for those changes would be important, obviously, as part of the plan.
Okay. Okay. How often should the city amend the plan, and what are the triggers to amending the plan? So at this point in time, everybody's asked, like, when do we change our plan? Well, tell me, how often should we be looking at our plan? What should we be considering when we're allowing someone to change the plan? What are those triggers? What are the things you want to know to make a plan amendment change? Go.
I'd say maybe target 5 years. If somebody wants to change it before that, they gotta go to city council and get approval. Period, yes or no. They can say yes.
So yeah, so it's really twofold. So how often should the city do this process? 5 years. Okay, so then the question is, if somebody else comes in those 5 years and they want to amend the plan, and I will let you know, I cannot tell somebody they cannot. Okay, because so somebody comes in and says, like, oh, I want to run a comp time. I have to say, okay. The next question is, I need to know the following. What are the dates prior to us being willing to consider a comp?
Anyone that come in and say, I don't think you say yes.
Okay, you're now changing it, fill it out, you'll do all the info. Excuse me, question?
The mayor or the city council can't say no.
They can negotiate the process. Anyone can make an application, and that's right. So the question becomes, if you go back here, so here, if you look at these were your weekends, but here, so you're in the top.
To their advantage, and, you know, constantly saying we need to make a change, which this isn't a cheap thing for the city to do.
Bring more pressure on the city, more pressure on the city.
Recommended process for somebody outside the property. But we would consider them like the question is, is this or is it right now? Especially if
State statute. That override everything else.
So that's subsequent. What it triggers the master plan. That means we would say every 5 years. So what is it that would
Unless maybe a change in the state statute that the city could recoup more costs, you know, like in impact fees, that the city, when the state changes and you can charge the developers to build schools, you know.
what it says is, it's like we get this fit changes.
Right.
So like right now, that we're amending the comp plan right now, and we're starting the process. All of a sudden, we have all these people who are like, because they're amending things.
Right.
You've got mail safe here, item J. Any other data information required by the city?
The question is, do you think that was the result of enough or something?
Are they asking the same, what the change
I think this is just a guideline. They still can go up in front of planning or, you know, this says this, but we want that. Their wish is just, so is that considered an amendment?
And they got everyone, and they have to stand there.
Yeah, like sit down, get a committee and sit down and go through the whole process.
But I'm curious, really one of the catches is great. And they come in and say, oh, I want to get to two, I just have that text, I want to strike out that. They get to do that under state law, they get to make their own laws. The question is, the question becomes, is this listen asking to provide us?
It's still the power of the council to say for. So you're always going to do this. Always ask for this.
I agree, I'm just saying, is there something that you think we should be asking for or not? Because using just and being
I hear they're building another one right next door.
Okay. Let's come back here for a second and see if we can move on. So one of the questions that came up was, can the city just say no and not take any amendments to our plan? And that's not allowed. Under Idaho code, we are required to at least consider comprehensive plan amendments every 6 months. So if somebody comes to us and wants to amend our plan, the city can restrict that all the way down to saying every 6 months we'll do it, or they can do what we do today, which is we just wait for an application to be made and we consider it then. So just to be clear about that, is I can't say never. You can never amend the plan. The maximum the most restrictive is once every 6 months. So let's go through our groups. Mac, you want to tell me what your group came up with?
We think 5 years that it should be done. And if somebody approaches to make a change to the plan within that 5 years, that we should, and I'm going to say this in terms that you wouldn't want to write down, but it would make it as expensive and arduous for them to do. The goal is to not have changes to the plan, but make it such that they have to have their act together to make the plan, to change the plan.
Zero cost to the city.
Yeah, zero cost to the city.
So the application fees may need to be.
So basically what you're saying is only developers will be allowed to change the plan, nobody else can come forward if they see there's a problem, and you're gonna make it impossible or very expensive for like individuals to come forward and make a proposal to a comprehensive plan amendment that may be greatly needed, because you're saying that you should make it nearly impossible, very, very expensive for citizens. But basically what you're saying is only allow developers to pay the fees and make comprehensive plan amendments.
Just like saying that anybody can
And I
do
don't
it,
think
they
it
can
should
follow
just
the
be limited
process.
to developers. I wasn't aware of this.
Okay, I'm going to stop. That's their opinion. They get to have their opinion, Judy. You don't get to shame them or make them feel bad about it. But you're talking over the top of them, and you've stopped letting them have dialogue. Robin, your group.
So we felt that the comp plan should be reviewed with the CIP annually, just for consistency, to make sure that it's consistent with comp plan. And that the city should look at the overall plan and the implementation to see how we're doing every 5 years. But that comp plan amendments should be allowed whenever, specifically if there's an economic benefit or it's for public or life safety. So if a new company wants to come in or expand, or the school district needs to put a new school in, or something needs to change from residential to commercial, and it's something that meets the vision with the city's comp plan, then we feel that should be done at any time.
So amend whenever, when there is an economic or community benefit.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Bill?
Overall, look at the plan, this group agreed with the 5-year mark, with what Robin just described, sounds very, very logical as well. And then, not so much triggers, maybe like if legislation changes at the state level, and then the city, and then the plan to take advantage of those types of things, that would be a fun trigger. Other than that, it was just a time review situation.
Okay. Jason?
We said every 5 years have it evaluated or changed.
So same as what we do today. Okay. Okay. Tonight, you guys have talked about some very broad statements about what, and I've kind of led you down some questions trying to get you to talk a little bit broader about the plan. In your summary that I provided to you, I did try to go through and find places of consistency that were through the entire discussion of the plan. And that's what this is. This was on that summary decision sheet, the guide that I sent out last week or 2 weeks ago. So the question just becomes, as we move forward, looking at broad statements, do these broad statements still, are they so valid, or are they consistent with what you've come out of this process with? That the overall structure of the plan is sufficient, but there's a lot of redundancies in policies and goals across the chapters. So I think we've talked about that tonight. I think we have clarified kind of how we want to do that. Overall, the plan needs all the charts, tables, background data updated and brought to current. I think we all can agree that that's absolutely a statement of fact. The city needs to address planned growth, and specifically address growth from Avamore within Boise and Gem counties, and what the city's population will be like for 50 years. I think we've heard that the plan doesn't do a very good job of going out far enough or dealing with Gem and Boise counties, that we have a lot of data for Ada County, don't have a lot for Gem and Boise County, and that really need to make it whole. The plan needs to address current utilities and facilities plans, fiber, cellular towers, schools, water, irrigation, et cetera. We need to be working with those partner agencies to bring those sections current. Consider referencing other master plans, schools, sewer, water, fiber, opposed to having all the documents and policies within the existing plan to help reduce redundancies.
If you incorporate by reference other people's plans, you are in essence amending your own plan if they change their plan. So are we saying that that's okay after everyone says our plan should not change except on a 5-year interval?
Here's the statement. Even though our plan says that if we don't have authority to control it, we don't get to do it. Even if our plan says it and they make an amendment, there's no benefit to the city. If the school district, here's a good example, the school district says, Eagle, here's our master plan, and here's Eagle, and we're gonna put a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school in Eagle in the next 20 years. And Eagle grows at 5%. Star grows at 10%, and Meridian grows at 20%. Now, these are made up numbers, so no one get freaked out about it. And they say, well, gosh, our student generation rates are through the roof in these two communities. We're not going to build this facilities here. We're going to build them here, because that's how we need to spend our resources to best use and support our taxpayers. Do you think you have control over this?
I just want to make sure we know that.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying we don't have control over that anyways, because they are separate jurisdictional entities from the city of Eagle regardless. And the question becomes, are we wasting time within our plan to say we want a school, we want this in Eagle, when we should really just be saying we'll work cooperatively with that agency and make our plans work together?
She's just saying she wants it the other way around. She wants our comprehensive plan to be their guide. Instead of them telling us what to do, she wants our comprehensive guide, our comprehensive plan to guide their decisions and their plans.
But this is where we get to, she just wants to make sure we're clear. They get to change their plan, and when they change their plan, in essence, our plan changes too. That's, I think, I just wanted to I wanted to walk through what that looks like. So I'm looking for doggies on the dashboard. I've got a couple. Does everybody understand that concept? And that's a fair concept. If we don't have jurisdictional authority, we work cooperatively with them, but we don't try to be redundant. Plans should be better address the integration of parks, trails, and open space, and create complete picture versus just parks and trails, to other necessary community amenities, including other necessary community amenities. So YMCA, ball fields, bikes, all of that. I think what we heard repeatedly was, again, we have a separation between foothills and lower land. We have green belts that are called out with a lot of policy, but we have very little policy for other trails within the community. We have a trails master plan, but it's really not integrated into the plan, and just doing a better job of doing that together. Fair? And that includes all the user groups, not just, what I've listed here. Work with ACHD, ITD, and transit to create an accurate picture of what the community roadways will look like over the next 50 years. That includes Compass as well. So really working with those agencies, recognizing our land uses create demand on the system, but we don't control what gets built. And so to be, to some extent, working cooperatively with those. And I think that's a fair statement. I think we've done that historically with those agencies. Establish a plan that is implementable. So focus on 1, 3, and 5-year goals and activities that can be achieved, that the implementation section was too long. There was too much in it. None of it was getting done. No one was accurate with it. And then have a frank conversation with the council and the departments about implementing what's in the plan for them. So what that means is working through budgeting and capital plans to make sure that things are getting done in those windows of opportunity. Those were your broad statements. Does anybody have anything you felt that we missed between what we've talked about today and these broad statements? Wow, you are speechless and it's only 6 o'clock. Okay. With that, I will type all of this up into a recommendation for the council. The council workshop will be June 23rd at 3 o'clock. It is their work session, and they are doing that because I'm gone at their next regular meeting. I've got to be in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Nothing against Nebraska, but I got to be at 4-H Nationals with my daughter. So we'll do that presentation. I'll present that presentation to them with what your recommendations are. Your summary sheet, that multi-14-page front to back thing, it goes with this recommendation, but giving them that was going to not really be very conducive. So try and giving them some north arrows about these are the major themes that they would like to see included. That will be presented to council. I will probably end up with them asking for a workshop later on to discuss scope and work and what that looks like going out. But that's where your presentation will go. Thank you. I cannot say it enough. You can look around. You know we have 2 empty tables. People have come, people have gone. Some people have been here diligently every time. We've had people who didn't come every time, but that's okay. I really appreciate this is a contribution to your community, and it makes our community better. And I absolutely believe as a participatory planner, the more the merrier, and it makes the plan just that much better. So I hope you all continue to engage in this process, whatever that scope of work looks like as we come out of this. And thank you. What?